I was on my way to the hospital, the world a blur of flashing lights and screaming sirens. A paramedic, bless his soul, had used my phone to call my husband Leo over 20 times. He didn't answer a single one. Just before blocking my number, he sent a text. What new madness is this? Cici's family is in trouble, I have to help her. Don't you dare start something with me right now. When I woke up in the sterile white room, I learned that the car accident had nearly cost me my leg. My first instinct, a deeply ingrained habit, was to reach for my phone and call Leo. But as the screen lit up, a series of notifications from the day of the accident caught my eye. They were from Cici. I heard it was you who got hit. So sorry about that. Leo is going to be my brother's defense attorney. Leo saw I had no appetite because of my brother's situation, so he cooked me porridge himself. Leo said you're refusing to settle. He saw me crying and promised he'd do everything he could to get my brother acquitted. And on they went. In that moment the fog lifted. The marriage I had fought so hard for, the life I had built around him, was nothing but a cruel joke. 2 days had passed since the accident. My best friend, Chloe, had somehow heard the news and had been sitting by my bedside ever since. Where is Leo? She demanded, her voice laced with anger, the moment the doctor left the room. I haven't seen him once since I got here. The doctor's words echoed in my mind, almost had to amputate. A cold dread washed over me. I asked Chloe to find me a charger. I still needed to call him. When my phone finally powered on, it vibrated for a full minute, a relentless barrage of missed calls and messages. I scanned the screen, a foolish part of me hoping to see his name. Instead, one name stood out. Cici. She had sent me 8 messages. I had added her as a contact out of politeness years ago, but we had never spoken. She was the constant source of friction in my marriage, the ghost that haunted every argument. I was about to ignore them, but some morbid curiosity, some self-destructive impulse, made me open the chat. As I read her words, a strangled sob escaped my throat. I heard it was you who got hit. So sorry about that. Leo is going to be my brother's defense attorney. Leo saw I had no appetite because of my brother's situation, so he cooked me porridge himself. I dialed Leo's number. The automated voice informed me that I had been blocked. Of course, the paramedics had called him over 20 times. He hadn't answered. He had just assumed I was causing drama over Cici again. I reread her messages. The man who hit me was her brother. The 2 days I had been unconscious, Leo had been at her house. He was going to defend the man who had nearly crippled me. Chloe, seeing the look on my face, leaned over to look at my phone. She knew all about Cici. Her face contorted with rage as she read the messages. I only called him once and he blocked me. So he was with her. Chloe launched into a 3-minute, profanity-laced tirade against my husband. Her anger was a harsh, clarifying light. And in it I finally saw the truth. Why had I been so patient, so accommodating, for a man who didn't care about me at all? This marriage was a ruin. It was time to cut my losses. When Chloe finally ran out of curses, I asked her to find me 2 lawyers. The car turned suddenly and hit me. He's clearly at fault. I suspect he was drunk. I had been unconscious for 2 days, missing the crucial window for evidence collection. And knowing Leo, knowing his professional ambition and his weakness for Cici, I knew he would compromise his ethics for her. The odds were stacked against me. And find me a divorce lawyer, I added, my voice steady. I'm divorcing Leo. Chloe was stunned by my composure, but she quickly grabbed her phone and started making calls. The next day, as I lay in my hospital bed, I heard a familiar voice outside my room. The door was closed, but I could piece together the conversation. It was Leo, representing Cici's brother, trying to negotiate a private settlement with my lawyer. I knew my lawyer would refuse. I waited for the door to open, for the moment I could throw the divorce papers in Leo's face. But only the lawyer came in. When Chloe arrived after work and heard that Leo had been right outside my door and hadn't even bothered to check on me, she launched into another tirade. But I had spent hours preparing myself for this. I had already accepted the fact that I meant nothing to him. The trial is about to begin, and the plaintiff is still not here. This is a clear contempt of court. I urged the judge to take this into consideration. Leo's voice, confident and commanding, faltered and then stopped as his eyes met mine. What are you doing here? He hissed, rushing over to me as Chloe wheeled me toward the plaintiff's table. This isn't a place for your games. He grabbed the handles of my wheelchair, stopping me. "What's wrong with you? You're injured, why aren't you at home resting?" I ignored his hushed, frantic questions. Chloe shoved his hand away with a disgusted tisk and pushed me into place. "All rise." Leo was, without a doubt, the best criminal defense attorney in the city. After the initial shock of seeing me, he seamlessly transitioned back into his professional persona. I had had 2 months to prepare myself, but when I heard him argue for a not guilty verdict for the man who had hit me, my eyes still burned with tears. The moment the judge announced a recess, Cici, who had been sitting in the gallery, rushed into Leo's arms. Her brother, a smug-looking young man, sauntered over to me and kicked my wheelchair. "So what if you won't settle? My brother-in-law is the best." "Caden, behave yourself," Cici called out gently before following Leo over to me. "Miss Miller," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I'm so sorry. If I had known it was you who was injured, we wouldn't have had to go to court." Her eyes were full of undisguised provocation. She had no fear of me exposing her lies. Chloe, who had finally made her way from the back of the courtroom, pointed a trembling finger at Leo. "You monster! You saw your own wife's name on the plaintiff list and you didn't even bother to check? You're actually defending this piece of trash." Leo's gaze, which had been fixed on me, darkened at Chloe's words. "Amelia, if your friend continues to speak so recklessly, I won't hesitate to face her in court." From the moment of the accident, the woman who had once loved Leo with all her heart had vanished. His threat had no effect on me. I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared and handed them to him. "Save your threats, counselor. Just sign this. After that, where you go, who you're with, has nothing to do with me." At the words divorce agreement, Cici gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Miss Miller, Leo has been so busy with my brother's case lately. He may have neglected you. But surely you wouldn't divorce him over something so small." I hadn't planned on engaging with her, but I couldn't help myself. "You can't live without him, can you? I'm making way for you. You should be happy." Leo, who had been scanning the document, was about to speak, but I cut him off. "If you don't want your little affair to become public knowledge, then sign it." With that, I gestured for Chloe to take me home. "Amelia, there's been a misunderstanding," Leo called after me. "Wait for me to come home and I'll explain everything." Even now, he was still going to stay with Cici. I knew he would take her and her brother home, and then he would have to comfort her parents. Who would believe that a husband could ignore his wife for 2 months, all to defend his ex-girlfriend's brother? Lying in the hospital, I had wondered countless times what his reaction would be when he saw my name on the court documents. He had stood right outside my hospital room and hadn't even looked in. That, combined with 2 months of silence, had killed the last vestiges of my hope. My only remaining fantasy was that he genuinely hadn't noticed who the plaintiff was. But his performance in court today, his reaction to the divorce papers, had made it painfully clear. In his heart, I was a stranger. After I was discharged, I moved back in with my parents and hired a caregiver. Leo called while the caregiver was helping me wash up. "Amelia, how long has it been since you've been home? The dust in here could choke a horse." I propped my injured leg up on a stool and settled into a comfortable position. "So you do remember you have a home?" My words seemed to take the wind out of his sails. "Let's not talk about that right now. Where are you? We need to talk." Assuming he wanted to discuss the divorce, I told him my location. When he arrived and saw the caregiver, his face soured. "You're injured now, so I won't say anything. But as soon as you're better, you need to fire her." Leo's mother had been a maid in a wealthy household. He had grown up in the servants' quarters. At 15, his mother died in an accident and he was thrown out. He had suffered a great deal. Though we never discussed it, I knew he harbored a deep-seated resentment for the profession. After we married, he had forbidden me from hiring help, claiming he didn't like strangers in the house. Then, using his busy work schedule as an excuse, he had left all the housework to me. When I loved him, I was willing to do it. But now, on the verge of divorce, I was done catering to his sensitivities. "I'm paying her salary. What right do you have to decide her employment?" He had never heard me speak to him like that before. He gaped at me for a moment before sinking into the sofa. "I know you're upset with me," he said, trying a different tack. "But I'm a lawyer. I have to fight for my client's best interests." When I didn't respond, he continued. "Even though Caden won the case, the compensation the judge ordered is too high. I came to ask you to withdraw the compensation claim. His words made me laugh, a bitter, humorless sound. Leo, what do you take me for? He clearly didn't understand. He frowned. Why are you talking like that again? Caden just graduated from college. He's been through a lot because of this. Cici's parents adore him. They haven't had a decent night's sleep in 2 months. Suddenly, the pain in my leg intensified, my chest tightened, and I struggled to breathe. I couldn't tell what hurt more. Leo, oblivious, pressed on. If it were anyone else, I wouldn't do this. But Amelia, we don't need the money. Just sign a letter of forgiveness, waive the compensation. Their family has had it rough. Slap. Shut up. I screamed, the slap against his face allowing me to finally draw a full breath. But it wasn't enough. I yanked up my pant leg, revealing the swollen, purple mess from my knee to my ankle. Even after 2 months, the scars were still visible. Then I lifted my shirt, showing him the dark, lingering bruise on my abdomen. Open your eyes and look. I shrieked. I was in a coma for 2 days because of this accident. If they hadn't saved me in time, my leg would be gone. Leo, who had been about to get angry about the slap, straightened up when he saw my injuries. Where were you when I had the accident? Where were you when I was in so much pain I wanted to die? You were with your ex-girlfriend, plotting how to get her brother off scot-free. His eyes reddened. He reached out to touch my leg, and I slapped his hand away. You are a disgrace as a husband. You are a disgrace as a lawyer. Did you not see the plaintiff's name? You came to the hospital and you didn't even bother to see if it was me? Are you even human? He stood up and knelt before me. How did you get hurt so badly? He asked, his voice trembling with something that sounded like panic. Believe me, before today I had no idea it was you. You called me so many times that day. I was busy. I thought you were starting a fight about Cici again. That's why I blocked you, why I didn't come home. His voice trailed off as he realized how pathetic his excuses sounded. Amelia, I was wrong. You can hit me, you can scream at me, whatever you want. I dodged his attempt to hug me. The only thing I want to talk to you about is our divorce. Just then the door opened. My parents, whom I hadn't seen in months, stood there. Their faces a mixture of shock and anger. Mom! The tears I had been holding back for so long finally came. Leo, who was always a bit intimidated by my parents, quickly stood up. Dad, Mom, you're back. Why didn't you tell me? I would have picked you up. My father snorted, avoiding Leo's attempt to take his luggage. Mr. Leo, the famous lawyer, we wouldn't dare trouble you. My father threw Leo out. Amelia, it's all our fault, my mother sobbed, holding me as she looked at my still exposed injuries. We let you suffer so much. My father, standing nearby, took off his glasses and wiped his eyes. My parents, both top-level researchers, were often involved in classified national projects. I had never been able to contact them easily. On the day of the accident, with Leo unreachable, they had been at a critical stage of their project. It was I who had to sign my own surgery consent form, gritting my teeth against the pain. In the hospital, I finally understood why my father had been so against my marriage to Leo. He was handsome, ambitious, and hardworking. But beyond that, he had little to offer. His humble background had been a source of gossip after we married. To protect his fragile ego, I had suppressed my own personality, catering to his every whim. But he had never seen my sacrifices. The moment Cici reappeared, he had started neglecting me. He would leave my birthday party to take her to the hospital because she felt unwell. He would miss our anniversary dinner to fix a power outage at her apartment, because she was afraid of the dark. When I finally couldn't take it anymore and started fighting back, we entered a Cold War. The day of the accident was his birthday. I had been on my way to his office to make peace. I would never forget the terror I felt before the ambulance arrived. But that fear was nothing compared to the cold indifference he had shown me for 2 months, nothing compared to the soul-crushing betrayal I felt as he twisted the facts in court to defend Caden. I had been so foolish. I had married him out of spite, to prove my parents wrong. This was the consequence of my own poor choices. Chloe told us everything, my father said, his eyes red-rimmed. I had always resented my parents for their absence, feeling like an abandoned child. As I grew older, I understood the importance of their work, but the distance remained. It was Chloe who had relentlessly tried to contact them since the day I was hospitalized. The moment their experiment concluded, they had rushed back. Amelia, what do you want to do now? My father asked. I want a divorce, I said, my voice firm. And I want to appeal the case. I want justice. My father nodded, a rare look of approval on his face. You just focus on getting better. Your mother and I will handle the rest. My daughter doesn't bully people, but she will not be bullied. Before the retrial, I had Chloe clear out all my things from the apartment I had shared with Leo. I had no intention of ever going back. That night Leo called again. I didn't answer, just sent him a text telling him to sign the papers. He didn't reply. The next day, at my follow-up appointment, Cici cornered me as I was leaving the doctor's office. The caregiver was getting my prescription, and I was alone in my wheelchair. Before I knew it, she had pushed me into the stairwell. "What are you doing?" cried out. She pushed my wheelchair to the edge of the stairs, then knelt in front of me and pressed down hard on my injured leg. "Why didn't Caden just kill you? Leo doesn't love you. Why are you clinging to him?" This was the first time we had been truly alone. The Cici I had researched was nothing like the wild-eyed, unhinged woman before me. "I've already given Leo the divorce papers," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Once he signs, we're done." She seemed to remember what she had seen in court. She released my leg, a look of confusion on her face. "Leo has never ignored my calls, but since last night I haven't been able to reach him." Her mental state was clearly unstable. I chose my words carefully. "You could try his office." She stood up. I thought she was leaving, but then she grabbed my wheelchair again. "I heard you almost lost your leg. If you fell down these stairs, you'd be crippled for sure. Then Leo would definitely not want you." She shoved the wheelchair forward. With a loud crash, it tumbled down the stairs. But at the last second, I had grabbed the railing, saving myself from the same fate. The impact, however, sent a jolt of excruciating pain through my leg. Before she could try again, the sound of voices from the floor below sent her scrambling away. At the police station, I was still shaking. My parents, when they arrived and saw the fresh bruises on my hands, were livid. "Where is the security footage?" my father demanded. "Why haven't you arrested her yet?" The police chief, who had clearly been called by my father, looked apologetic. "Dr. Miller, the hallway camera shows your daughter being pushed into the stairwell. But the camera inside the stairwell, it's a dummy. There's no recording." We all understood. Without a recording, there was no proof. My parents, who had dedicated their lives to science and reason, were now just ordinary, helpless parents. But I should have known my father had other resources. On the way home, a black car followed us. "Amelia," my mother said, her face etched with worry. "For the time being, don't go out alone. Be careful." Just as we got home, my phone rang. It was Leo. This time I answered. "Amelia, what did you say to Cici? Why did she start crying the moment she saw me?" he demanded. My heart clenched. I calmly recounted what had happened at the hospital. He cut me off halfway through. "Cici is not that kind of person. If you're trying to cause trouble, you're using the wrong method." For a moment I almost doubted my own memory. But the throbbing pain in my leg was a stark reminder. It was real. "Leo, what goes around comes around. You tell Cici that she'd better hope I don't find any evidence. You and your little family. I won't let any of you go." There was no point in talking to him further. Realizing he wouldn't agree to the divorce easily, I contacted my lawyer to file a suit. But my father's network was more extensive than I had imagined. He hired 2 renowned lawyers from the capital, one for the accident case and one for the divorce. He truly took care of everything. When I received the court summons, Leo called again. This time I answered, curious to hear what he had to say. He had been calling me several times a day, but I hadn't answered. He had even tried to come to my parents' house but hadn't been allowed past the lobby. "Amelia, does it have to come to this?" he asked, his voice weary. Chloe had told me he was having a tough time. After we married, many of his clients had come to him because of my father's influence. He had used my father's name to steal cases and throw his weight around. Now that the news of our divorce was out, his special treatment had ended. His former colleagues were making his life difficult. "Come to what? I told you I won't let you or that family go." "Amelia," he said, his voice laced with bitterness, "Cici and I, it's not what you think. If you don't like her, I'll never see her again. Just talk to your dad. Ask him to let this go." In 3 years of marriage, this was the first time he had ever spoken to me so softly. But I wasn't buying it anymore. "You know what you've done. Weren't you so eager to get Caden a not guilty verdict? Let's see if you can really control everything in this city. A month later, we were back in court. This time, my new lawyer systematically dismantled Leo's previous arguments. Caden, clearly spoiled, rotten, started shouting obscenities at me when he saw Leo losing, saying he should have hit the gas harder. It was a pity he hadn't killed me. His words had no effect on me, but I saw Leo's face darken and Cici sob in the gallery. A smile touched my lips. My lawyer then announced he had a witness. A young man walked in, and the color drained from Caden's face. On the day of the accident, Caden was drinking with us at lunch, the witness testified. He said he called a driver, but he drove himself. One by one, the lies unraveled. Drunk driving, hit and run, obstruction of justice. Caden was sentenced to 4 years in prison, in order to pay a hefty compensation. What a difference a month makes. I watched as one of them was led away in handcuffs and the other collapsed in tears. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted from my chest. After the trial, Leo approached me. "Amelia," he said, his expression complex. "Is this what you wanted?" "Of course not," I replied calmly. "It's not over yet." He was so confident in his own position that he was stunned when he learned his law license had been revoked. "Amelia, what did you do?" he demanded over the phone. "I was at the hospital for physical therapy with my parents. I simply fulfilled my civic duty," I replied. Destroying evidence, violating professional ethics. I had just reported what he had done. He had earned it. He still hadn't signed the divorce papers, but I was no longer in a hurry. Caden's family paid the compensation on the last possible day. The moment the money was in my account, I deleted Cici's number. I was annoyed that she had gotten away with it, but after seeing her unstable mental state, I wanted nothing more to do with her. But life had other plans. The day before our divorce hearing, Cici showed up at my house. My father was out, but my mother and the caregiver were home. The caregiver opened the door, and Cici pushed past her. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Amelia, you've been hard to find," she said, a cold smile on her face. "Do you know, because Caden went to jail, my parents are blaming me for everything." My mother, hearing the commotion, came out of her room. I gave her a look, signaling her to call the police. Cici, her eyes full of hatred, didn't notice. If Leo hadn't paid the compensation, my parents were going to sell me to an old widower. "It's all your fault. Why did you have to appeal?" I then noticed the bruises on her exposed skin. But what did that have to do with me? "Your parents favor your brother and treat you like dirt. Go take it up with them. What's the point of coming here?" I knew provoking her was unwise, but her emotional blackmail was infuriating. Her family wasn't poor. They just didn't want to part with their savings. "It's all your fault," she shrieked. "Why are you clinging to Leo? He loves me. If my parents hadn't tricked me into going back to our hometown, I would have never broken up with him. I should have been the one to marry him." She started to cry. She had a delicate, fragile beauty, the complete opposite of me. I suppose that was what Leo found so appealing. "You two can be together soon," I said, trying to de-escalate the situation. "If Leo signs the papers, you can be married in a month." Her crying subsided. She seemed to be thinking. "Yes," she muttered to herself, her mood shifting. "I need to get Leo to sign. He loves me. I gave him everything. He has to marry me." With that, she turned and left. "Did you call the police?" I asked my mother. "No, I called your father. He said he has people watching the house. They can be here in a minute if anything happens." That evening, Leo, who hadn't contacted me since his license was revoked, called. "Amelia, now that I'm not a lawyer anymore, you think I'm not good enough for you? Is that why you want to divorce me so badly?" His logic was so absurd I had to laugh. "This is the consequence of your own actions. What does it have to do with me? And you're the one who swore you'd never contact Cici again. So why did you pay my compensation?" Silence on the other end. He clearly didn't know what Cici had told me. "Amelia, he stammered. "Just sign the papers," I said, cutting him off. "Cici is waiting to marry you." The next day, a package arrived. It was the divorce agreement. He had signed it without contesting any of the asset divisions. I scheduled a time to meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau. My parents, despite my improved mobility, insisted on coming with me. Leo arrived looking thinner, dressed in a black trench coat. He greeted my parents, but they ignored him. Our strange entourage, A woman in a wheelchair, her ex-husband, and her disapproving parents, drew stares and whispers. The looks of disdain directed at Leo were palpable. He said nothing, just quietly went through the process. "Come back in a month to get the final certificate," the clerk informed us. We left without another glance at Leo. A month passed quickly. On the day we were to get the final divorce certificate, Leo was late. Just as I was about to message him, he pulled up. He wasn't alone. Cici, in a white dress, got out of the passenger seat. It was clear she had convinced him to marry her the same day he divorced me. "Miss Miller," she said sweetly, "is this your new boyfriend?" My bodyguard, a man my father had hired, shot her a look that silenced her. The process was quick. The moment I had the certificate in my hand, Cici snatched Leo's, scanned it, and then dragged him toward the marriage registration counter. The clerk looked at them with disgust, then at me with pity. I didn't care. With my recovery almost complete, I decided to re-enter the workforce. My marriage had derailed my career, but I was not one to live in regret. I started studying for the entrance exam to a research institute. It was the life my parents had. A life of quiet dedication I had once scorned. Now it seemed appealing. My only source of entertainment was Chloe's gossip. One day, 3 months after the divorce, she mentioned Leo. I heard Cici took all of Leo's money and ran off with someone else. I listened with the detached interest of someone hearing a story about a stranger. It turned out Cici had been married before, unofficially, and had a child. The child had gotten sick last year, and she needed money. That's when she had reappeared in Leo's life. After they married, she had started poisoning him slowly. When he was hospitalized, she had gotten all his bank passwords and vanished, leaving him alone in the hospital. "That woman is vicious," Chloe said. "But Leo deserved it. He brought it on himself." After that, we moved on to other gossip. What happened to Leo, whether Cici was ever found, we didn't know, and we didn't care. Those people, that part of my life was over. The days ahead were mine, and I would live them for myself. The Inn.